Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. We have an incredible author and speaker this afternoon. So without further ado, I'll introduce Dydine Umunyana. Dydine is the author of the book Embracing Survival. She was appointed a Youth Peace Ambassador in 2013 for the Aegis Trust, an organization dedicated to the prevention of genocide and mass atrocities worldwide. Subsequently, in 2015, she became Global Mentor for Peace at Serve to Unite, an organization that cultivates peace through creative service learning and global engagement. Dydine is committed to establishing a dialogue between people for understanding their shared histories and cultural differences. Through her writing and public lectures, her goal is to pierce the wall of silence that still pervades much of our society. Please join me in welcoming Dydine Umunyana. You can sit there too. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So, Dydine, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why don't we start by taking us back to Rwanda in 1994 and providing the context and setting for this powerful and inspiring story.
Back in 1994, I was 4 years old, so I was a baby, and I lived with my grandparents. I remember the first day of the genocide on April 7th. It was actually because the genocide started on April 6th, the night of April 6th. So I lived in eastern province of Rwanda, and the genocide had already started in the city, in the capital city of Rwanda, and spread throughout the country. That in the morning, in eastern province, that's when the genocide really began, where I was in my grandparents' house. And as a child, I remember 5 in the morning, my aunt Agnes, she woke us all up, and as I walked in the living room, all my cousins were sitting on the floor, and my aunt was telling us that we were going to church. So it was my favorite activity in my childhood to get out of the house and go to church. So I was really excited, and I screamed out loud to her that I wanted to dress to wear my beautiful dress that my grandpa gave me the Christmas before that year, and she shushed me to not be loud. If I need anything, I should whisper from then on. So I was a little bit scared, but still wanting my dress. and my little dress was a white little dress with the 3 butterflies, and I loved it so much. So it was my opportunity to wear it. And she ran in the room and brought it back and dressed me up and gave me a jar of milk, because we were more than almost 12 children in the house, because before the genocide, the Hutu government used to kill or put in jail the Tutsis who were young and seemed to fight back. So in the preparation of the genocide, so they can succeed, that was one of the things they did, aside from buying machetes and the uniforms and all that, was also, that was part of it. So my parents fled Rwanda before the genocide. That's why I was in my grandparents' house. But when we were about to leave, she gave every child, a little something to eat or drink, because she didn't know where that journey will end. And so she gave me the milk. But when we left the house, the street was full of people. People had been fleeing all night from Kigali, and they had been walking. It's like a 30-minute drive from Kigali to Eastern Province where it was, but people had been walking. So they had a lot of things with them. They were carrying mattresses and food, children. It was just a lot of people, and we joined them. But I didn't write in the book, but I always had this feeling of a little shame because I was somehow excited. For me, it was really exciting in that moment, and I always felt it, and I never even told anyone because after the genocide, I could see how, when I was growing up, I was like, how did I feel that excitement? But as a child, I don't know. So as we were walking towards cathedral in the small city of that village, there was a lot of whistles and songs. The Hutus were singing songs of hate in the name of God, and the whistles started blowing around everywhere in the hills, and I don't know what happened that moment because I lost everyone.
Yes.
So you probably remember in the book.
Yeah.
And I found myself in a home of perpetrators. So they were my grandparents' neighbors. I played with their children. And I didn't really quite remember most of everything because it just stayed in me, but I didn't really know. Because after the genocide, when I reunited with my parents, my mom had to bring me back there so that I would not end up like my father.
Sure.
Because my father had trauma and all of that, and she feared that I would have the same thing, and she wanted to know what happened to me because I was in this home of perpetrators and nobody that knew me. My family wasn't there, yes. So I was the only one lined up with so many other Tutsis, and I was the little one there, and they started killing everyone. And as they got to me, I asked for milk, if I can drink my milk. And I don't know where I got the thirst to ask for milk, but that milk saved me. Yes. It did. Because when I asked for milk, it was almost a confirmation to the perpetrators that I am a Tutsi child and my parents are in the RPF. They knew me. They knew who I was. So
the RPF is the resistance.
The resistance
yes.
were in Uganda. That's both yes. my parents were there.
Right.
And as of course, those perpetrators, my neighbors, so they knew who I was. They knew my parents. They knew the whole background. But asking for milk, it was, I will say this for maybe, I don't know if I'm right, but in Rwanda, before I came here, they used to say begos are for Jewish people. They love begos. So it was almost, you were in front of Nazis and you're a child and you're asking for a bego. Mm. So it's a confirmation that you are a Jew. So when I asked for milk, culturally, Tutsis owned cows. Mm. So in our culture, children of Tutsis drink milk in the morning for dinner, for lunch, everything. So asking them for milk, they posed and mimicked me because and started saying, oh, you won't be a child of Tutsi if you did not ask for milk. You won't be a cockroach or a snake because they didn't really right. see us as humans. So we were a snake or a cockroach. But in that moment, when they were mimicking me and really loud, someone heard them inside the house, and it was an elderly man who walked out, and he saw me in the line. Most everyone was already killed, and were barely breathing, and he asked them why weren't they working. So the way the propagandas were on the radios, they told the young Hutus, the civil killers, that it's work. Going out there and kill Tutsi, it's a job. It's a work. You have to wake up and go work. So when he walked outside, really he was frustrated that they're not working. They're just talking.
And he was Hutu as well.
He was Hutu. He was the grandpa of those kids.
Yeah.
When he saw me in the line, I don't know why he got pity, but he told them that they should be ashamed of killing an innocent child when their wives are carrying their children no different from me. Mm. So he rushed and saved me. He put me between a pair of his legs, and then they finished everyone there, and he threw me under the bed. So under a wooden bed in the house. So that was the first day of the genocide, and of course there were 99 more days to go.
Yes.
And I was a child, so I didn't really remember most of those days. But when my mom took me back there, I was almost 7 or 8, because I had nightmares when I was growing up, and I would dream of dead people dying or people killing each other, and they would be. I would think in my dreams that they're my family, the people that I know. So I couldn't really familiarize my dreams and the reality.
Yes.
Like it would take me a time to go back to sleep when my mom would bring me everyone, my brothers and our babysitters, everyone, so she will confirm to me that it was just a dream.
Yeah.
But when she helped me and take me back there, they started going away because I knew what really happened to me, because I could put then pieces of that.
Yes. So there were, I believe the stat is, an estimated 1 million Rwandans were killed during the genocide, 20% of the population, 70% of the Tutsi population was killed. Give us your sense of some of the drivers of that level of hatred and what underpinned that type of activity that drove that level of hatred and genocide in the country. You mentioned colonialism, the power of colonialism, and
where I was going.
Okay, I'll let you go there.
That's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I know, because the more I grow older and learn more about how, because I couldn't understand how didn't white people kill each other. We spoke the same language. We're all black. We're in this tiny little country, and how did we end up killing each other? I did not really understand it. Of course, I would just learn how my father's entire family was wiped out, and you wouldn't learn anything from my dad except the pain and that he's feeling, because he was already traumatized.
Yes.
The same with my mom. So it was really a confusion growing up in Rwanda, having that history. I couldn't quite really understand the reason behind it. So I think when I was 18, I got the chance to go to the Rwandan Genocide Museum and learn the history and background of the genocide for the first time. And that's the first time that I was able to have compassion even towards children of perpetrators, because then I started feeling them, how they feel if they know that their families has done such a thing. That's like it's a shame that you carry on and you didn't even do anything.
Yes.
So I learned so much about what really caused the genocide. But to really understand those 3 months of the genocide, you have to revisit the colonial era.
Sure.
Because before the colonial era, the Rwandans did not have tribes or ethnics.
Or classes, you imply.
It was classes, actually. So it was the Tutsis were the elite class, and the Hutus were the middle class, and the Twa, they were the poor and the hunters mainly. So they lived together, they shared everything, and if you owned more than 10 cows, you would join the Tutsi class, because we did not have money. So we'll count the richness. I don't know how to say it in English,
yeah, that's
but
wealth.
Wealth. You count wealth. It depends on how many cows that you have. So when the colonials came, which I always feel like it was in early 1930s, and for me, I feel like we can never give what we don't have. So when the Germans came in Rwanda back then, you know what was happening in Europe. It was Holocaust that was going on. And that's the only thing they brought in Rwanda. So they started categorizing Rwandans, studying them, measuring their noses, dividing them, and saying that the Tutsis are tall, they're lighter skinned, they probably are from Ethiopia. So they're not from Central East Africa. And the Hutus, so they were really measuring everyone, putting them in the classes, and they gave them ID cards. And I don't know how my people, they accepted that, but I don't know, because I was way before I was born. But they learned how different they were. It took a few decades for them to really, I guess it's easy to teach hate, because they learned in only 3 decades. And when the Germans left and gave the country to the Belgians, because the Germans were losing power in Africa, the Belgians had Congo, and Congo is huge and had diamonds and all that, so they gave Rwanda to Belgians so they can rule it together. But really, Rwanda had nothing. It did not have minerals, it didn't have, so it was just a little part of Africa, small and beautiful. They can just have their almost a headquarters. So in 1959, they killed the king. They say, I'm not 100% sure if the Belgians poisoned the king in Burundi, but when they did kill the king, the Hutus took over. So when the colonials came in Rwanda, they promised, they built schools, hospitals, and all those privileges were for the elite class. So the Hutu children wouldn't go to those schools. So really the conflict began from we are having more than we are, yes. And this is our land. How dare you have all of this? So when the Hutus got in power, they were already angry at the Tutsis, that they are not from there and they're having everything. So they wanted to kill everyone. So the civil war really began in 1959, and the prince fled with a lot of Tutsis in the neighboring countries, and the Tutsis who stayed in the country lived in fear. So everywhere in the country, they started learning how the Tutsis are not humans. So those propagandas, the name calling, really began in 1950s. And there was a lot of civil war in 68 to 72. So really the 1994, it was the time to erase the Tutsi race on the planet. And it was well organized, well planned, because I remember when I was growing up hearing stories on how the government will give, because they used to train young people who are 16, 15, and they would train them how to kill and with traditional weapons. And there's this one weapon they used to call it. It's really interesting because that's the one they wanted to use on me. And as a child, I never get it. Like even the weapon is called "No Pity for the Enemy." How can a child be an enemy? Because you really don't even know who you are. But when they were training the civil killers, they gave away free small radios. And these radios, you could charge them on the sun. Now, this is a very poor country, but how hatred can really work, you will spend everything you have to really succeed in hate. So that's why the genocide succeeded in only 3 months, and 1 million people were killed because neighbors were killing neighbors. And in one night, they were ready for it. In one night, those radios, the only thing that was on radios was go kill the enemy. And it just happened like that, but it was already in the hearts of people. Yeah. People, they justified it because they had already learned for a long time that the Tutsis are not human. Yes. Yeah, so I think even in the world today, people justify calling each other names, and and they forget that when you're doing that, you're actually losing your humanity in you, because being a human is having loving and being kind and having compassion towards each other. But mostly the perpetrators actually think of themselves as more human, right? as the other side.
So let's talk about your story more directly, because the memoir really focuses so much on the family and your familial relationships, and they're a source of both power and comfort, but also there was a lot of difficulty connected with the relationship with your mom, especially with your dad, the separation of them, as you mentioned, when you were a child, but also like the valor of the extended family, people like Aunt Agnes, who were rescuers in many ways. So as a child, how did you process family then? How did it play a role in your sense of survival? And as you reflect now as an adult woman, how do those perspectives on family, how are they different or similar?
I think it cultivated something in me that was, this life is not just for me. And I think it's kind of like an idea. It's a savior. Like, it can save your soul, because then you become stronger than you can think, because you're living for your siblings, you're living for somebody else. And I remember at 13 years old, I couldn't understand life. I couldn't understand life. When genocide ended, I had just met my parents for the first time since birth. So I was really, really excited to experience love from a parent for the first time, but it was not there. Their hearts were already destroyed. My parents had lost his siblings, his nieces, his parents, and he couldn't see life. And that's the person I was supposed to learn from, how to love life and all that. My mother was the same. She was strong, very strong. She never cried. I never saw her crying for her siblings. But the other day, for the first time, 23 years later, she cried for her brothers. And because she was in a therapy session, and then she called me. She said, "I think I'm being weaker." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I promised my family that I stayed so that I can take care of their family, their children. But now I am." So she never really took the time to grieve, and I think that's where, even for me, was more of like, even when I was about to, this is it. I don't really want this life. Why would God create life if He meant to suffer? I remember I went to this lake in the north of Rwanda, and I had really, really given up on life. But when I got there, we lived with my father then, and he was always traumatized. And for some reason, his trauma told him that it would be easier if he would be dead, but not with machetes. He didn't want us to suffer as his family did. So we really suffered from that, and we flee all the time from him. And this time I said, "This is it, I'm done." But when I got there, for some reason, I thought of my brothers and sister. And I thought, how are they going to take the news? How are they going to leave if I'm the oldest and I'm doing this? So I've cried for them and fell asleep, thank God. And I woke up around 6 p.m. when a guard was kicking me out of at the beach, because the children were not allowed to stay there later than 6. So those kind of little moments saved my life, but I think it was more because my family had this value of loving the entire family, even when they found out you were long lost cousin.
Right.
Yes, and there's that protection that when my aunt was my age, almost my age during the genocide, Agnes, and she took care of all those children. She was the only adult in the family. She never had children, and she had my brother through all those 3 months in her back. And even when she tried to leave him, she did not, because, fleeing, running. And now I cannot imagine myself doing what she did.
Yes.
When I think of it, I was like, would I really be able to take care of all these children if anything happens? But I think when you extend yourself to be something bigger than yourself, it actually helps you. It helps you, more than you can imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the escape to Uganda. How did you get out ultimately?
During the genocide?
During the genocide, yeah.
Well, so in Eastern Province, it's one main road that goes all the way to Uganda. And when we were fleeing, we were heading to Uganda, which we did not really make it there. But I remember a few things because on the way there, my dad, who was big in the military in the RPF, when he really came back, he was looking for us, and he looked for us first, and he couldn't find us. So he found that we met in the street because he saw my aunt and he recognized her. And then he came to us, but I didn't know him. My baby brother did not, and he wanted to take us. and my brother cried out because he didn't know who this guy was. And my aunt looked at me. She had her way of looking, and you'll know what she's talking about. She was a really strong woman. And she looked at me and she said, Dydine, you go. This is your dad, and we will meet you. So, because she couldn't really carry all of us.
Sure.
So he put me on a motorcycle. He was on a motorcycle then, and we actually went back. So my aunt was going to Uganda because my dad was on a mission. He brought me back in Rwanda, which those are memories that didn't leave me, because when we were going back, there were dead bodies everywhere and in the streets, and I remember I was vomiting on him. Because I was holding him from the back, and I could try to closing my eyes, but it was smelly because it had been days. So few days later, he left me in a camp, soldiers camp, because he went on a mission and he left me with some soldiers, and it didn't go well. So he had to take me back to my aunt because I couldn't eat or drink or do anything, and he decided to find my aunt because my aunt told before, culturally, because of the tension that was in Rwanda, they already knew that they did not like each other, the tribes. So even when you were a child, they would tell you never eat in a stranger's home.
Oh, that's right.
Or never take anything from a stranger. So I couldn't open my mouth for anything from anybody that I don't know, except it was my aunt or someone I know. So when my dad took me, I didn't know him and I didn't know anybody, so I did not have even water. So he decided to take me, find my aunt, and we went to this center, small center, but things were really getting bad, because then it was not just machetes. The military, the Hutu government, the ex-FAR, used to call them the ex-FAR, had started fighting with RPF. So it was just not running from somebody. It was running from bullets, from grenades, and it was a war.
Yeah.
So this place where my aunts were hiding, where the RPF was rescued the rest of few Tutsis that had left and put them in small centers and guard them, then the Hutu government would throw grenades on those places. So when I got there, that's what I guess I fell asleep when my dad was taking me there, and I woke up with my aunt, and everything was flying, and so it was those kind of moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the title of your book is Embracing Survival, and if you had to try and locate what were those things that allowed you to survive and to kind of emerge to where you are today, sitting on this stage, where do you locate those critical things that allowed you to hold on and to survive during that time?
Well, I think, it's the surviving the genocide, it's one thing. Then surviving after surviving, it's another thing.
Right.
Yeah, because it's really hard, because your life just changes completely. And of course you don't know any other life, and that's the only thing that is around you. So it's really one way you survive or you die. Most of the survivors did not, most of them are like my dad. Or they already passed away after the genocide, or they became alcoholic or drugs or prostitute, just anything that would just make them not think. So it was really those choices that we had, and for me, I guess I guess my dad was more of like learning for me. So I always, because even when I was having those nightmares as a kid, my mom would be like, I cannot take it if you end up like your dad. And she was really straight. She would, I remember when my biggest dream was to go to boarding school, to turn 12 and go to a boarding school. And I remember when I was going to school, she told me, like, you know, when you're sending your kid to school, a girl, you would tell her some things like, just take care of yourself, whatever, some sweet things.
Right.
No, she was, don't dare get traumatized. So I did carry that with me. And I knew that if I'm broken inside, that's what I'm going to be giving. And I would try so hard to do what I loved. I loved singing. I loved writing, so I would write my emotions down and sing. I would become a church girl. So I did all those little things, but I didn't know that was my survival techniques until then. I was here 3.5 years ago. And I remember calling my survivor friend, and after weeks, and I told her, you know, I didn't know that one can sleep all night and all night long without anything, just sleeping.
Yes.
So really, for me, when I was growing up, sleeping was luxury, like knowing that you're going to sleep and just sleep all night. And I guess I ended up learning how to embrace that life.
Yeah.
And just the way it was, and love it the way it was, and just knowing that there's someone out there who's living a worse life than I was, that saved me. And going to the museum, seeing these children who were my age, who did not survive, it made me, for the first time, appreciate that person who walked out and chose to save me. Well, I never met him, I wish, because when we went back, he had already passed away. We met just his wife, but I always feel this gratitude towards his soul, you know, and those people are around. We have a lot of good people like that. But he did save me, and for some reason, I just seem like, why am I even alive? So there's a reason, and it's not just for me. It's for other children out there who are going through the same thing, to know that there is hope. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be okay.
Which is what you're devoting your life to now.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up for questions if folks want to queue up at the mics. So bring us up to today. What's the status of Rwanda today? How are you connected to the country? How have things changed? What's your perspective there?
I think Rwanda today is okay. I won't say that it's perfect, because it's only been 23 years, and it takes a long time to teach peace than teaching hate. For some reason, hate is really loud, and when love is like quiet and people don't like to open, it's vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah, so we don't get to learn it as much as when hate is out there. But we're trying to learn to have reconciliation, forgiveness, having survivors learn how to forgive, because it's really more for the survivor to be able to leave after the survival. And I love that after genocide, they actually learned that there were no reason to have tribes. So though it stirs some people's hearts and minds, but in our ID cards, there's no tribes. You're just a Rwandan, which was a big step. And I hope maybe it will take generations and generations, but I hope that one day younger children will look at each other and just see each other as humans, not thinking twice about, because that's how I grew up. I grew up looking at my classmate, and the first thing I want to know is where they're coming from, what their tribe, my enemies, and they're just children like me.
Yes.
So the country is trying to move forward and heal, but it will take a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Any questions so far? Okay. So just staying on the topic of contemporary situation in Africa specifically, I share with you an article by Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times, and the title of this article was "Conflict is More Profitable Than Peace." And the article was about the current situation in the Central African Republic and the genocide that's been happening there for about 14 years now. Yeah. And the premise of the article was that for us to actually eradicate poverty and all of the difficulties in developing countries, we have to first deal with conflict. And apparently 80% of UN humanitarian budgets these days goes to dealing with conflict as opposed to getting people food and those sorts of things. So what do you think is behind that kind of intractable issue of conflict in places like the Central African Republic, South Sudan, Yemen? What is the answer there in terms of dealing with that kind of conflict that just continues to perpetuate itself?
I think for me, UN, or because they can look over the entire world.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's really, because when there's a conflict, it takes a lot of work to fix it. But there's ways that you can see that conflict is coming and prevent it before it happens. Okay. It's really less work. Then you don't need Croix, how do you call it? Red Cross.
Right.
There is a lot of work when there's conflicts. People and it's not really profitable. Well,
his point was that it's profitable for the perpetrators.
The perpetrator.
Right, exactly.
But they kind of, for me, I think the perpetrators, they think they're profiting, but they're not. Because most of the time, for me, I think the perpetrators during the genocide, where are they now? They don't have a life. Yeah. They're in prison, or they're fleeing all over. But can you imagine if you've taken millions of lives?
Right. You're
not really profiting. Maybe in that moment, but they just need to be informed. And most of the time, we need to really educate people the importance of profiting from peace. Because it's more profitable. You have more joy. You are happy, and yes. When you're happy, everything makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think if they can be able to prevent it before it happens, if they can be able to share this world, because I guess I don't know why, but one person said that we share the same sky, we share the same sun, because we don't have control over them. So we can't really fight for it. But with land, people should think about it the same way.
Yes.
Because really, what is home? It's where your heart is.
Yes.
Because you find yourself there. You never ask where to be born. You never ask the color of your skin, or ask family rules. I really want to be born in a very, very wealthy family. No, that's never going to happen. You just find yourself there. Yeah. So why in the world would you blame somebody to be born the way they are? It's just more of like, if you're educating our children, if we're educating, in the curriculums, they should really include peace building. They should teach children to love each other, and just be as if you're teaching a history, but have the importance of peace.
Yes.
How it affects individuals, and giving the children that, just giving them that. I think it's wealth. Having
yes.
Peace is wealth. It's life, and if we don't have peace, we don't have life.
Yes.
So the UN and they should learn. I don't try to create a system where if a child is born, they don't even think twice that, oh, I am this color, or I am this, or that's that. Just see ourselves as humans, and we won't have to deal with people killing each other, or the entitlement.
Yes.
This is my land, this is mine. Just knowing that we can, I think the world is not that poor.
Yeah.
We make it poor, or we have more than we should. And then there are people who not have anything. So if we can be able to have compassion and give more and prevent this kind of killings, like yes. In Rwanda, if we had someone seeing it before it happened, I guess millions of people would have, hundreds of people would have been saved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Your story is amazing, and you are truly inspirational.
Thank you.
Can you tell us if you're involved with any organizations or efforts here? As you said, hate somehow screams and love is more vulnerable. So I'm curious about efforts that you're involved with to help teach children or just people in general about compassion and love and acceptance and tolerance and all of that good stuff.
Thank you. I am. I'm involved with this one nonprofit. It's called Serve to Unite, and it was founded by a former white supremacy. He's my friend. I met him the first time, at my first talk when I got here. It was 3 months after I got here. My English was horrible, but he had patience to listen to me, and I learned so much about his work, and I was curious because before I came here, I learned a lot about the civil rights movements and all of this thing, the history of America, and it was like, oh my God, like this is a lot, and I watched a lot of movies. So when I met him with all these tattoos, and he has a very, very heavy voice because he was a rock and roll when he was young. So his voice is like really strong. He told me about his work, and I asked him, how did you change? And he said, I changed because I had a daughter, and I was very young, and I was a single dad. And one day we were at the store in a car, and my daughter saw a white man walking, and she said, "Oh, Dad, look at that nigger." At 4 years old. Yeah. So for the first time, that's when that word sounded wrong in his ears. And he told her to never say it, and he tried because he had learned so much the compassion when he was at a thing in his 20s. He had received a lot of kindness from a Jewish person, from a Black person that helped him because he was always drunk or just in a misery. Because mostly when you have the hate, really you're hurting yourself. Yeah, you're not happy at all. You just want to blame the entire world because of your misery. But when he changed, he's a wonderful soul. He's an amazing person. Sometimes I tell him, "Are you doing this because you're paying back?" But he has this group that he lives in Milwaukee, and I speak to the children. They actually designed, the children of 14, 13, they designed this cover.
Oh, they did? Oh.
Yeah, out of denim. So it's a huge portrait they made when I was finishing my book. And they sent me a picture, and I was like, oh this is going to be my book cover. So these children, they Serve to Unite, they learn peace, and I share with them my story, and they ask me questions. Really beautiful. Children are very, very authentic. They tell you what they think. So there's those programs, and I work with Olastio. My friend Aaron is here, and his wife. They're the founder of the nonprofit, and helping children to learn and to go to nicer schools, children from underserved communities. With Aegis Trust, that's when I started my public speaking, sharing my story, and learning the history, not just of Rwanda, but what really is relevant to the entire world, because I think we all are looking for the same thing, to be happy. We just look for it in different ways. But if we can be informed on how to find it in the right way, I think we're able to change. And I see with Arno, I see my friend who used to be a white supremacy, and I met this person who's in the KKK. Somehow I find myself in those situations. but this guy, his name is Chris. He was reforming, so he was still in the KKK, and I didn't even know that KKK still exists, but it does. So he was sitting across from me and trying to reform, but I saw how when we were talking about love, and he was really shy. He didn't want to let it out. And I would ask him so many questions. Why do you do this? And why did you do that? But when he got to where I asked him so are you okay with Muslim? He was really aggressive that I got scared. And then he could talk, like really talk. And it was like, yes, I am. And it's like, how about children who are Muslim? And he said, you never know what those kids have. And I said, why? In those dresses. And I said, what do you mean? It's like, maybe they have something, a bomb or anything. So then he became the person that he is. But when he was learning how to reform, when he was trying to be a nice person in front of a black girl, he was really quiet and shy, and he would even cry because he told me it was the first time he's ever sat across on a table with a black person. And I think if we can be able to switch that, he can use that strength, and that strength in him that comes out when he thinks about what he hates so much, to use it when he's thinking about what he loves so much. And I think we all have that capacity. Because we grow what we feed,
Yes.
We have those two sides in ourselves. And if we feed more light in us, it really comes out. Because I used to not be this girl. I used to be angry all the time to everyone and everything. You shocked?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that.
I used to.
You today.
Thank you. And I used to, even my mom, I would spend months not talking to my mom, blaming her not giving me the life that I want. And she doesn't really have any, but I will still feel like I want more from her. And whatever that was not going on in my life, I will find somebody to blame. The children of perpetrators, I blame them that they have everything and I don't, and it's because of them. So being in a victimization mode,
Yes.
It makes us like giving ourselves a justification of hating, and we really, when you hate for some reason, I don't know, because even children, when they don't want something, they come out like really strong. Like, I don't want that. And then when they love something, they may shy away. But I think that's what we learn. So we can really be able to teach how to be excited when something wonderful is happening, or we've done something wonderful, then we can change the way we see life. And yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. You're incredible.
Thank you.
My question is more about the post-genocide recovery, specifically the role that the government plays in that.
Yes.
I think if you look at the immediate years following and the way that Paul Kagame really embraced international trade and turned the economy around really quickly is undeniable. But then you fast forward to today, almost 20 years later, some people would say he's an authoritarian. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm curious if you think that you guys are in a place where you can now have more of somewhat of a cleaner democracy, or if you still think that there needs to be a lot tighter government control to keep things on track.
Thank you. That's a really tough one.
It's Google.
I know. I did not know what I was getting myself into. So Rwanda it's a very complicated country, very complicated. And as you can imagine, after the genocide, the country was a mess. And we had a lot of people, different, I don't know, let me see how I'm going to describe this. Because we had Tutsis who fled Rwanda, the ones I explained in the 1950s. So they grew up in neighboring countries, in Burundi, Congo, Uganda, and Tanzania. And after the genocide, really, they say the cause of the genocide or the conflict was because the children who were born and grew up in the neighboring countries, they were in exile and they were never taken as Congolese or Burundian. So they were always refugees there. So they always wanted to come back home. And that, for the Hutu government that was in power then, they told them that it was the country, the Habyarimana, the president, in his speech, he used to sometimes say how a president can have that kind of speech, but he would say that Rwanda is like a glass full of water, and if you try to drop a little bit of one drop of water in it, it spreads. So he would say the Rwanda is full already. Nobody can come in. If you try to come in, it will spread, and the spread was blood. So when the Tutsis tried to come in 1990, they killed a lot of Tutsis inside the country, and they even publicly they would say on the radios that if you try to come in, we're gonna kill your families so that we have space for you. So when genocide ended, after the genocide ended, the Tutsis who were living in the neighboring countries came back in Rwanda, and the perpetrators were fleeing to Congo, which still now they still have a rebel group in Congo that's growing. And there were other Hutus who were going in jail, and there were moderate Hutus, and there were survivors, which was 30% of the Tutsis in Rwanda, very small number of survivors. So there were all these groups coming in this little tiny country with a different, some of them are excited, others has lost everything, others are coming back home, or they have a victory, or they are fleeing. So it was a very, very difficult country, and just having all those mixed of feelings, it was hard. There was no really a quick solution to fix what has just happened. The first thing was to bury the dead bodies and move on. So for me as a survivor, there was no time to grieve. There was just no time, because you have to live again and on the same speed as everyone else who's coming home. So then the economy was not as horrible, because they came back with things, although the houses were destroyed and all of that, but that was for the survivors. So and we had to go on that system, go back to school, do this and this and this. It was always, that's why like my mom, now the trauma is coming out now, because she never had that time. And now with the economy and everything, it's, before I came, I worked in rural areas. There are places, there are people really, really hungry. Really hungry. They have one meal a day, a terrible one. So there's, of course, that's happening because also mostly the entire world, those stood still during the genocide. But after, there's a lot of nonprofits that came in Rwanda. So it's a very vague situation as a 27 years old, and I'm not even in the politics. I don't know how I can really touch it or detangle it.
Do you have confidence in the current government that's there?
So I've never known any other government. I've never known any other government that's the only, because
Sure.
Yeah. The Hutu government, I was a child. I really didn't understand their system. And this is the only government I've ever known. And of course, there's a lot of change. And leading a country like Rwanda, it takes a special kind of individual to be able to really control those kind of minds that are completely, it's really, I don't know how to.
No, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's really complicated. It's not perfect, but at least we're not, it's not 1994. Yes, at least we're not there. And hopefully we'll never go back there. Hopefully we learned our lesson, and we'll have peace somewhere in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I responded well. Thank you.
So we're basically out of time, but one final question. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see you over there. How about you as the last question? Go ahead.
Okay. I think an easier one. There's so much wisdom, and you've had so many experiences, and you're basically an amazing person.
Thank you.
What are your dreams for your life going forward? What do you want to do?
What do I want to do?
Maybe that's a hard question.
I want to do this, I love inspiring people. I love especially children. And I want to write more. I want to touch as many lives as I can before I die. And it's hard. I remember Aaron and I were in Boise, I think 2 weeks ago, and it was at the Human Rights, Westmouth Center of Human Rights, and the director came to pick me up from the airport, and then he said, Dan, Pricing is really wonderful, and he was talking to me about he was kind of what you did, like, kind of preparing me for the talk. And he was having a conversation in a car ride, and then I was asking me how I feel when I do this. And I'll say, I'm fine, but I didn't. In Rwanda, culturally, we don't really, even if you ask me, what did you have for lunch, I won't tell you. So we always say, where are you going? I'm going down there. Or how are you? I'm fine, even if I'm dying. And so he asked me that, and I said, I'm fine. And then he said, a few years ago, I've had a friend who was a Holocaust survivor. Her name was Rose Barrow, and I asked her how she felt after the talk. And then she said, when I speak it, you hear it, and when I speak it, I say it. And that really scared me, because I knew that this is what I want to do. And I know a lot of survivors don't do it, but then I knew that it takes me a long time to get over a talk. It takes me at least, I have to be able to call my friends right after the talk, I have to distract myself. It takes me at least a few days or 2 weeks to really get over the talk. And I thought the more I do it, I will get better. So I asked her how old was she, and she said she was 91. And in my heart, I was like, that's not promising. How am I going to live my 70-something years doing that to myself? Maybe I should quit. But when he was saying it, I said, oh, that's not fun. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this. And he said, but didn't remember, she started when she was 81. So she really never talked about it until she was 81, and it was all inside her. And I said, oh, maybe because I started young, and maybe at 40 I'll be fine. So I want to keep doing it. I know sometimes it's hard. When I met Aaron, when I published the book, I was quitting public speaking. I said I should just go work somewhere in entertainment, and I went to CBS. And Entertainment Tonight. And Aaron was like, Dydine, when you're ready, just let me know. And because you have to be out there and inspiring people. And by that time, I would be sobbing on the stage. Of course, I did cry a little bit today, but I used to really, really cry, like sob. And I was like, this is not pretty. I should just not do this. So the more I do it, the more I remember most of them, because the more I think about it, it comes back. Yes. But I think I take meditation classes now, and my meditation teacher told me what happens to you happens for you. So it really maybe happened for me so that I can help someone else. So I want to do this for the rest of my life. And hopefully at 40 or 30-something, I won't be still staying it.
Well, on behalf of Google and the group here, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
There's a book signing that will be happening in the back if any of you would like to get Dydine's new book. Thank you.
Thank you.